The way I term it is you kind of have to lay the foundation of like 101 of gluten-free eating when you first start the diet, and then you're ready to graduate up to an intermediate level and an advanced level. And to me, travel is intermediate level. Like, I don't know how you would get your diagnosis and go on a trip 2 weeks later. You know, that sounds impossible. But it's doable once you get there. So that's kind of, I hope, encouraging to families who are just getting their feet under them and starting to figure out how to navigate a new normal. Hey guys, I'm so excited because today I'm going to try something new. I'm here with my friend Courtney, and she is going to be my first guest on our Ask the Expert series. This series is made to get a little bit beyond just hearing me talk all the time and talk to some people who are really experts in some of the different parts of traveling with dietary restrictions and having kids with dietary restrictions. And we are going to ask some folks who are celiac or have kids with food allergies, folks who are experts in travel, cruise travel, Disney travel, and bring all of that information we can to you. But we're going to start out with Courtney, who is one of my longest and closest friends, and I'm so excited that she agreed to talk with me today. Courtney is diagnosed celiac, and whenever we decided to start eating gluten-free, we got our test results back that said you should be avoiding gluten. I was like, Courtney, help! And so she has been my go-to girl, and I want to make those resources available to you as well by just asking her some questions about what it's like. Tell me about your journey with being on a restricted diet and how you got here.
I was diagnosed with celiac disease probably about 11 to 12 years ago when I was in the city and said, something's not right. So I went in and I got tested, and my cousin had recently also been diagnosed with celiac disease. And so I kind of had a hint, a feeling that might be the result. And that's when I decided to change up my diet and start avoiding gluten. At first it was tough. At the time there was not the resources that we have now. So it was a lot of avoiding gluten rather than cutting it out of our diet entirely, because there's a lot of slip-ups along the way. But now I definitely am, pretty much almost entirely gluten-free unless there's some sort of cross-contamination issue, which we all know how that goes.
Accidents happen.
Yes.
So as our celiac expert, I say this jokingly because everyone who is diagnosed with celiac is forced to become an expert. Like if you don't do it, you're in trouble. You're not going to be happy with the situation. But as someone who has now lived with celiac for over a decade, what would you say to a family who just received a diagnosis? Maybe like, what's the best tip for just starting out?
Definitely. So I'd say maybe have 3 tips. The first one would be, don't be afraid to ask questions. I was diagnosed when I was a young adult, 22, 23, and I was afraid of being the person who asked a lot of questions, the person who kind of caused trouble and like a commotion at a restaurant. But I really learned over time, especially as celiac, gluten allergies, other sensitivities became more prevalent and more recognized, someone's going to ask this question of a restaurant worker at some point in time in the near future. Why don't it be me? Let it be me. So when I'm on vacation, when I'm traveling with my friends, when I'm just going out with coworkers after work, I'm not having a bad time because I don't trust the food that's in front of me. So don't be afraid of asking questions about preparation.
And can I just say, as introverts, we both don't want to talk to the waitstaff, but if you can be the squeaky wheel, you're doing a service to the next allergen family that walks in there and is trying to avoid gluten. So don't be afraid. I used to want to hide under my menu, but it's okay to ask the questions, because a lot of times the waitstaff, The general manager, the chefs, they are in the hospitality industry because they're passionate about serving people.
Yeah.
They want to give people a good experience,
Mm-hmm.
and you're giving them that opportunity. If you don't tell them, they don't have that opportunity, and you're stuck with a plain salad with just some lettuce leaves, and everyone's unhappy.
Yeah.
So give them the chance
Mm-hmm.
to do well, but you can't do that until you speak up. And the more and more you speak up, you'll learn what you need to say
Mm-hmm.
when you go to a restaurant, and you'll transfer some of that assertiveness into other areas of your life where it can be helpful.
Yes, that's very true as well. I know we're talking a little bit about foundations, right? So for families who are trying to figure out what to be eating, I would say start with the basics. Figure out what works for you as bases, like rice. Or if rice doesn't work, find something else along the way for your carbs, and then figure out as a chicken or beef or whatever, and then add on things that get more complex, like sauces, which are sometimes daunting when you're looking at the ingredients list and you're trying to figure out, is there soy sauce in this? What hidden gluten ingredients might be in there? If you're starting off with the basics, you're kind of gaining confidence over time as you get more and more complex with creating dishes for yourself and your family, and then also when you're ordering out and you're trying to figure out what works there.
You find the sneaky gluten.
Yes, there's so much sneaky gluten. For me, myself, like when I first went gluten-free, I was obsessed with this Australian licorice that was amazing. It was green apple. I loved it. The first ingredient was gluten, and I didn't realize it because of how it was listed. And at the time, there wasn't a lot of visibility and transparency about that. So I was eating gluten for like the first few weeks, not realizing it at all.
And if you're somewhere like in Europe, you're lucky because there's so much more visibility, like guidelines around what needs to be listed on an ingredient list. If you don't know, then your best bet is to go with the shortest ingredient list because there are fewer places for gluten to hide. Obviously, buying like a fresh veggie or fruit or protein with nothing on it is a single ingredient, and so you can be a lot more confident than something that has this whole list that you have to decipher where did that come from.
Right.
You mentioned like some sugars are derived from
Wheat
sources, yeah. And so that it can be really tricky until you know all those little things.
Yeah. Even when you have a food that you're confident in, this is not meant to instill fear, but I would still say check when you're looking. When there was global supply chain issues a couple of years ago, and even going into the last few months, there were a lot of companies that were really thinking outside the box, and it was fantastic in terms of trying to find ways to still get their products out without having to stop production because of shortages and things. But then you still have to check to make sure that they are not changing it in a way that is making it that you cannot eat it. So it's always good to check the ingredient list, even when it's something that you're confident in.
I assume to some degree that's always been true for the restaurant industry, but as we're talking about Disney, anytime they list that something is allergen safe, they always say make sure to ask because supply changes happen even within the run of the Food and Wine Festival or things like that, and that the chefs are so good about adapting slightly if they need to, if something suddenly isn't available, but then you don't know if it's safe for your dietary restriction. And so always ask, especially at the Disney festivals, to see if something changed.
Yes. And that I have like a specific situation. I was on the Disney property last week, and the whatever margarita mix they are currently using has an orange liqueur that has gluten in it. So I could not have a specific kind of margarita. And they said, hey, listen, you said you were gluten-free. You cannot have this spicy margarita, but you can have the Black Magic margarita by Neil Patrick Harris. It was beautiful. It was wonderful. I had a great time. But I appreciated that they recognized immediately, you can't have this option. You have to have this one instead, because I made it obvious to them that I needed an alteration or an accommodation.
And so now this channel will be all donuts and specialty alcoholic drinks and Disney.
That could be my new calling.
I'm not mad about it. Let's do it. And any resources that would be helpful for those new families?
Oh, yes. I would, the internet is just a wealth of information all the time. That's not what it was 10 years ago. But I find don't be afraid to just search gluten free in the apps that you're already comfortable with. I do most of my grocery shopping at Target. And I just search gluten free and a whole host of different options show up. I think there might even be like a separate filter. I don't know if it's my algorithm or what it might be, but there's a separate filter where I can search every option, and sometimes there's new things. I tried egg rolls the other week, like frozen egg rolls from Feel Good, that were amazing. They were awesome. Expand my palette a little bit in terms of snacks and different options I might want for gluten-free.
That is wild.
Yeah.
I did not know the app did that.
Yeah.
When we first started out eating gluten-free, I went to this specialty health food store and just bought everything off the shelves and was scared of going to the regular grocery store. But Target, I mean, pretty much anyone watching this video should probably have a Target somewhere near them. Like, you can get these things now in all the big box stores have them. Like, our Costco has so much. And so it's a great time to be gluten-free. And if you're watching this in the future, 3 years from now, you're probably in an even better place. So good for you. But that said, I used to always just stay around the perimeter of the grocery store, and there's a lot more that is available to us now in the middle. Once I take the time to walk down the aisle and pick up things. This is better when you don't have kids in tow. They slow down the process significantly.
They want everything.
Oh my gosh. But if you can every once in a while, I try to take a special outing to the grocery store without kids, and I take my time and start picking up things I wouldn't normally look at. And there's a lot of like, I pick it up and put it down, I pick it up and put it down. But you find new things, and I love that the app is making that even easier for you at Target. That's amazing.
Most apps now are including that. Grubhub, there's a separate filter that you could say like, I want gluten-free food, and you'll see the people that list gluten-free in their menus and things like that.
That said, the internet is full of misinformation. And so you also have to do your homework and make sure it's good. But I always think if a place bothers to list themselves as a gluten-free option on Grubhub, if a place bothers to put gluten-free notations on their menus, they're more aware than the next place over, and I'm at least halfway down the road to getting a safe meal. I'll still have those conversations and be double checking everything, but they might have a better awareness of the terminology I'm using and stuff. Also, Courtney is one of my Disney buddies. Makes it sound like I'm Donald and her goofy or something, but no. So here on the channel, we are a Disney family. In fact, my husband is a cast member here in New York. But whenever we go to Florida, I mean, we do Disney a lot. You'll find on the channel a lot of our videos are about Disney. But we have taken Courtney with us to Disney, and she goes a lot of times without us too. And so the first time I went to Disney after we had changed our diets, I was like, how do we do? Am I just going to pack a bunch of snacks in a backpack and that's what we're going to eat all week? But you had good experiences there.
Yeah, definitely. I was worried at first when I started going on vacations and going outside of my normal comfort zone. How do you find the food that you're okay with eating? How do you trust restaurants that they say that they're, using a dedicated fryer and whatever it is? And 10 to 12 years ago, again, I'll say it was a lot different. The conversation was, what is gluten? Versus now it's, okay, how do you prepare your meals? What are the ingredients that are happening in there? And the food staff is a lot more educated. So at the time, I expected Disney to be that experience of packing the granola bars. Well, not granola at the time, but because they weren't there. But
now we have gluten-free granola bars.
Yes, exactly. Packing the bars, packing the fruit, packing extra food just in case. But what I've enjoyed about going to Disney is you let them know you have an allergy, and often at restaurants, the chef comes to your table. They talk to you about like what your options are and what would you like to eat off of the menu versus here's your one option. And
it's often a salad.
Yes. usually it was a salad. So now there's just a lot more options for you to do. So I found a lot of luck at the Disney properties, as well as Europe is really very gluten-free conscious and very allergy conscious too. the US is definitely coming up, and I think it's a lot easier now to travel.
Courtney just got back from Italy.
I did.
You ate some good gluten-free treats.
Oh my gosh, the best carbonara that probably the only real carbonara that I've ever had.
In terms of Disney, I think they have always been on the cutting edge of their hospitality team, just serving folks who have additional needs. Can you think of any specific time that something was a special treat or there was extra added magic?
I know exactly what I'm going to say.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
You're like, I'm not sure if you're going to be able to pick it up.
I know.
I've been in Florida for business conferences before, and the snacks that they lay out for guests at the boardwalk who are participating in conferences, there was a jelly donut there that was gluten-free. And I still think about that jelly donut, and I still look it up online before I go to a Disney park to say, okay, are they serving jelly donuts at gluten-free anywhere on the property right now? Where do I have to go to get it? And there's some really good resources like blogs and Instagram and YouTube, like you, where you can go and find like special treats and things like that. I have not found the jelly donut again, but I think about it all the time. It was so good.
This is such a theme on the channel. I feel like we're basically becoming a gluten-free donut blog. That was my next question, though, was about resources. Do you have a favorite resource? Do you have some favorite accounts? They don't even have to be people that specifically focus only on Disney or only on gluten-free food, but just people who help you whenever you're planning a trip.
Yeah, I'm a pretty equal opportunity person when it comes to like travel sites and things like that. I tend to focus on Instagram and TikTok, and I think that's just like where I consume a lot of media. And I'll often search like gluten-free Italy when I was planning to go to Italy, or gluten-free Disney when I'm planning to go to Disney, and get a lot.
Gluten-free Street Gang?
Gluten-free Street Gang.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Phil Hates Gluten.
Yes.
Have been like my lately kind of activities. But yeah. I have some friends who are very involved with the Dapper Days and those activities, and
Disney
bounding. There's some great like communities there, and there are a lot of people. Hey Blondie Online is one of them, who she's also has a lot of food restrictions, and she'll talk about like her experience there.
And she's fun. Local to Disney.
Yes,
so she has a lot of experience in Florida. Yeah. I follow her too because her content's just really fun, but she also happens to mention gluten-free stuff, so that's helpful to us sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay. Overrated, underrated.
I had a very hard time trying to think of overrated and underrated things. Overrated for me is hamburger buns.
Okay.
I've gotten to the point where like a good gluten-free burger at like Red Robin hits the spot, but unless I'm like preparing it myself, I'll just get a lettuce wrap. We're all good. Like I'm fine. There's no need for the bread. I'm not used to having that much filling carbs anymore either. Yeah. It's been 10 years.
But I don't disagree. Like the burger buns often fall apart so much that you're like, I don't think that added to the situation.
Right.
Okay.
I think that's exactly why
I agree with you there.
Yeah.
I agree with you there. Most of my overrateds are usually because they're things that I then find out I can't have, and then I just get mad about them. But that's not actually overrated. That's
right.
Just spite.
Yeah. Maybe not spite. That's
it's my disappointment acting out.
Disappointment.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite underrated treats at Disney that everyone else doesn't really? Everyone says go get a Dole Whip. Mm-hmm. Everyone says like if you eat dairy, the Mickey Premium bars are gluten free. But I don't know if there's anything that like people don't really talk about that much, but is kind of a go-to.
I don't know if it's underrated because I hope people know about it, but the churros that we got in Animal Kingdom, was it Animal Kingdom?
So that's my overrated because they have dairy in them and I can't have them.
Oh. Okay.
So that's me being a little disappointed. But it's okay. If you think they're awesome, for gluten-free folks who aren't restricted from dairy, they're awesome.
Yes.
They're awesome. And if you don't know about them, because they're not in every part, like Dole Whips you can get at a number of locations across property, but churros are very limited and special.
Yeah. And I went to Disney Springs when I was just traveling for work. It makes it sound like I travel a lot.
She was at Disney last week.
I did. I had a very nice time in living with the land. We went to George's Wine Bar in Disney Springs. They have a Dole Whip old-fashioned. I thought of you guys, and I almost took a picture to send to you guys, and I was like, this is just rubbing it in. Also, it was dark. It was very dark in there. They had already like brought the lighting all the way down, and I wasn't going to get a good picture of it, but it was a like a slushy old-fashioned with orange Dole Whip in it. It was very good. So that might be my new underrated. Everybody go find it. But that's also alcoholic, so not kid friendly.
So moms, dads,
you'll need it.
Friends, go get the Dole Whip old fashioned. I think Nick would be very excited about this.
Yeah, I'm gonna send that to you guys.
I might. My friends over at Gluten Free, Dairy Free Walt Disney World. Brandon loves an old fashioned, so I need to see if Sarah and Brandon want to get over to Wine Bar George and test that out. Where are you going to next?
I'm keeping it quiet for the next couple of weeks at least, and I'll be in Cape Cod for the summer, for a summer house. For that experience, that's living in a house with my family, about 30 of my closest relatives for a week, and we're preparing our own food. So in those situations, I get to make my own food along the way, and I'm able to trust what's going on, which is also very helpful. So that'll be like a low-key traveling experience.
That's always nice.
Yeah.
Having a kitchen. Although sometimes the family thing is a point of conflict for some families, but with a full-on diagnosis, I think it's a little different for families like ours where we worked with a holistic practitioner, but we don't have a doctor's diagnosis. And so there's still people who will be like, yeah, I mean, that's a preference, and you'll be okay if you get a little exposure, and they don't care to be careful around my kids. Hopefully with your diagnosis, people don't get too annoyed with your diet.
I won't call anybody out. I won't. I think it's more of a misconception or misinformation from other people's side of it, of not realizing like a spoon that's shared between two pasta pots is probably not the best idea, because pasta water has, anything that's cross-contamination is just not a good idea for somebody with an allergy or a sensitivity. And I think there's just often like people don't realize it. But that's fine, because it's a great opportunity to educate people, and they're used to my excessive questions. And all of my family is very understanding, and they will, we might get up to the last hour before dinner and realize I don't have anything, and they'll whip something up for me. Or somebody's come, I've had like my own special little lasagna dish that was pre-made beforehand. So my family's definitely very thoughtful in that way.
Anything in particular that you're excited about in the gluten-free world right now?
I am excited about making my own things. And I've been slowly learning how to make my own focaccia. I'm going to attempt baguettes this weekend to see how that goes. Coming back from Italy, I want some nice bruschetta. So I'm excited about branching out and being able to understand here are the things that I do miss. Here are the things that fit into my diet. If I can't get it on a regular basis from the grocery store, how do I make it for myself? Which is not for everybody. That's a time-consuming activity. I 100% get that. But I'm kind of excited about delving into some good recipe books and figuring out how to do some things for myself.
And I feel like so many of us, when we start out eating gluten-free, it's so overwhelming that we find these fixes, short-term solutions for some of the things we need. And then we start to branch out and get more familiar in the grocery store with what we can have. Mm-hmm. And so then we start to lean a little more heavily on packaged things. And sometimes it goes a little too far in that direction. We have to bring it back. And so at first, when you don't know what to do, a lot of it is just, I'm going to cook for myself and I'm going to keep it simple. And then you start to get bored with what you're cooking. And once you get past that into I found some packaged things that work for me. And then you rebound back to the other way, which is let's make focaccia.
It's so easy.
I love that is where you've gotten. And I feel like The way I term it is you kind of have to lay the foundation of like 101 of gluten-free eating when you first start the diet, and then you're ready to graduate up to an intermediate level and an advanced level. And to me, travel is intermediate level. Like, I don't know how you would get your diagnosis and go on a trip 2 weeks later. You know, that sounds impossible. But it's doable once you get there. So that's kind of, I hope, encouraging to families who are just getting their feet under them and starting to figure out how to navigate a new normal. Thank you, Courtney. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation, and I'm also going to be spending some time interviewing some other experts. So if you have anything specific you would like for me to feature, I'll go find another expert on it, but let me know down in the comments. And if you have any questions about traveling to Disney gluten-free or traveling to Italy gluten-free, or any other questions you have for us about life with celiac disease, you can leave this down in the comments and we will get back to you. Thank you so much for watching us, and if you like this video, please give us a subscribe and check out the other videos we've got going on. And we will see you next time, travelers. Bye!